The magic and mythology of chalk figures. We're all quite used to the idea of chalk being used in creative endeavours and for educational purposes. Many of us will have spent hours at school and college sat before a blackboard upon which information was written in chalk, but the creative use of chalk goes much further back in history. Chalk is a sedimentary rock that was originally formed underwater from the shed plates of tiny microorganisms called geoglyphs, so once upon a time chalk was part of a living being. Chalk is found mainly in southern Britain in a large swathe from North Norfolk to Dorset that also juts out towards Sussex and the infamous White Cliffs of Dover in Kent. Where chalk is found in the British Isles, so too can chalk or hill figures be found, utilising the underlying chalk to display a white figure against the green of the grass on hillsides. These figures or geoglyphs are designed to be seen from afar and cannot fail to impress the observer. There are over 50 of these chalk figures in Britain of varying age and size. The purpose and origin of these figures is little understood, but there are plenty of theories. Some may have served political purposes. It's generally thought the Uffington white horse figure represented one of the local Celtic tribes, the Jabuni or Atrebates, and perhaps was the territorial marker of their domain, while the Cernabas giant, sometimes called the Hernabas giant, a large naked overly endowed man, is thought to be a political satire. The Westbury horse is said to have been created to celebrate King Alfred's victory at the Battle of Edington in 878 AD. While myths and legends explain some of their origins, in truth we simply do not know the purpose of many of the older figures. Chalk figures are incredibly difficult to date because the designs have often been recut through the ages, and many are not mentioned in the historical record until the antiquarians of the 18th and 19th centuries took it upon themselves to write about them. There are also new designs being planned and created all the time. It's generally believed that the Uffington horse is the oldest geoglyph, dating back to at least Celtic times, as the design is similar to that of Celtic coins, or perhaps even to prehistoric times. There's also a debate as to whether it's in fact a horse or a dragon, which only adds to its sense of mystery. Other figures we know a great deal more about, as some are recent additions. The Marlborough horse in Wiltshire was created by local schoolboys in 1804. The Osmington white horse was carved in 1808 to commemorate the visits of King George III, and the Devizes white horse was created to mark the millennium. The idea of commemoration is another theory behind the origin of these enigmatic figures, while others also carved to celebrate or commemorate events that have long since been forgotten. The Cernabas giant with his giant irregular shaped club could be a Celtic figure, maybe even the god Dagda, who was said to have had such a club, a Roman Hercules, a Saxon god, or he could have been constructed as late as the 17th century as a parody of Oliver Cromwell. The other famous human figure, the Long Man of Wilmington, who enigmatically holds two poles, could be a Neolithic Orion, the Saxon god Woden, the Green Man, as that was his original name, or a medieval pilgrim. Gog and Magog were an ancient god and goddess, respectively. Their forms were once carved into Plymouth Hoe, but have since been lost. Magog is thought to have been the only known chalk representation of a female human. If, as folklore suggests, these figures do indeed represent deities, were these figures the gods or creatures that were worshipped by or patroned to local tribes? Could they be a place of worship or ritual? Certainly the Cernabas giant has become linked in folklore and the folk imagination with fertility rituals. The most common chalk figure is that of the white horse. There are many of these across southern Britain, with a few in Yorkshire and one in Aberdeenshire. In British folklore, the horse was an important creature, and many Celtic tribes worshipped the horse goddess known as Epona or Rhiannon. White horses were thought to belong to the other world, and to be able to cross between worlds. Were these horses symbolic of that goddess, or did they mark places where this world and the other world meet? In the Mabinogion, a collection of ancient Welsh tales, the goddess Rhiannon emerges from a hollow hill, riding a white horse as she crosses from the other world into this one. In Aberdeenshire, on the site of Mormont Hill, is a white stag. The stag is another otherworldly creature and an omen of things to come. There are also some more exotic animal figures, for example the Bulford kiwi in Wiltshire, carved in 1919 by soldiers from New Zealand, the Laverstock panda and the Whipstone Zoo lion in Bedfordshire. Other designs include the Y-crown in Kent, crosses like those at Lenham in Kent and Whiteleaf in Buckinghamshire, and even regimental emblems, as at Fovant in Wiltshire. Our knowledge of these figures is not complete. Previously lost and forgotten figures are occasionally rediscovered. The figures were also constantly under threat from the ravages of time and the regrowing of turf. Several have had their outlines altered, deliberately or accidentally, by recutting. Unless they're maintained, they simply fade away. Many have only survived to this day thanks to locals who through the ages have engaged with these monuments and take it upon themselves to care for them. Our ancestors created and tended them, and we still tend, create and co-create and recreate them today. They stand guard over this ancient land, yet also need their own guardians, so we must acknowledge that like the once living beings that became the very chalk used to create them, these figures too are a living aspect of our countryside and culture. Thanks for listening. See you in the next video.